Hello and welcome to today's edition of Fun with Framing with your favorite framer, Stefano. Hey, Steph.
Hi.
So today it's a little how-to video. We're going to talk about varnishing.
Well, I've done videos on varnishing before as to why it's important. In this case, this is a painting by Vittorio del Signor. It was done in 1993, but it was never varnished. Now, before you start varnishing, well, you might want to use maybe a damp cloth just to take off any dust, or you can use trusty Einstein, and you just brush off whatever it may be, dust, little tiny hairs that fall off your body. You have animals, cats, dogs. You take that dust off, and then you varnish it.
Obviously, the paintbrush you're using has never been used to actually paint anything.
No. Einstein is pretty clean. He's only used for dust. I suggest you only use a paintbrush that was never used for paint. In this case, it was never used for paint. It was only used to brush off dust or particles, so it's a clean brush. And so we varnish. Now, the way you varnish is you don't just store, you're just wasting a lot of varnish. You're going to go through a can of varnish really quickly. And considering, well, Camar isn't that expensive. Here, it's about $12 if you find a good price. But some of these varnishes go for $25, $30. So you don't want to go at it, in a crazy way, and you just waste a lot of varnish. So what I do is I start here and I stop there. I don't just go like this. I start and stop every time I do a pass. And so I go like this and like this, like a checkerboard.
Left to right,
Yeah.
north to south.
So there we go. And you always test off your varnish, because there's some varnish cans that will start sputtering droplets of varnish, and you don't want that on your art, because you're going to see that drop. It's going to dry out and you're always going to see it. So you make sure you do a test away from your canvas, and then you go and varnish it. So
very important to also always do it in a well-vented area. Best is outside. So as you can see, Stefano is staying a good 6 to 8 inches away from the canvas in a constant movement. And we change direction. So what does a varnish do, Stefano, and why is it important to varnish your pieces?
well, you have to know that originally, in this case, it's an oil painting. Originally, the artist, when he painted it, or she painted it, it was glossy and the colors were vibrant. So that's the vision of the artist. And because it's oil that dries very, very matte, and the colors are just, for me, they're dead. They're not as punchy as they were when the artist painted it. In order to give that back, you need to add some varnish. So there's that aspect where the colors are more beautiful, they're deeper, they're more complex. The other aspect is a simple scratch. I know it could appear to be something really, it's banal. You don't really need to. Yeah, you kind of do. There's a simple scratch, just your nails. You're cleaning it, your nail touches the painting. Well, if it's varnished, well, the varnish just took the hit. The varnish is scratched. If there's no varnish on it, it's the painting that just took the hit. Your paint has a scratch on it, and that will require to be restored. If the artist is alive, maybe you could get in touch with the artist and they'll touch it up. But if he's not, or she's not, you're going to have it restored, and it gets really expensive. So just a shot of varnish will do a world of difference. If the varnish is scratched, usually another coat of varnish, and you're done. But if it's the paint, it needs to be restored. So a coat of varnish is the best thing. There you
And
go.
the reason that we at Le Balcon d'Art prefer to use this type of varnish, can you explain, Stefano?
Well, I prefer to use Camar because it's retouchable, meaning you can actually paint over it. In the case you're an artist, you finish your painting, you varnish it, and then you notice, it's missing something. I need to add some more paint. I need to add a touch here and there. Well, you can do that on top of this varnish. It'll be perfectly fine. You touch up your painting, another coat of Camar varnish. It's Camar, made by Krylon.
Which we're
And
not sponsored by in any way.
no, and I like using it because it's very fine as a varnish, and it's not expensive. It's not yellowing, and it'll last a very long time. So I love it, and it dries really quickly.
And how long should we wait to before varnishing a painting? Say, do we wait the same amount of time for an acrylic as we do for an oil?
Well, acrylics were made to be fast drying. Um, Oils, depending on your technique, if you use a spatula or a palette knife, well, then there's a lot more oil. It takes months, sometimes years for it to dry completely. Acrylic, it dries relatively quickly. I'd say, you know, 48 hours.
48, 72 hours.
Yeah, it's dry. I mean, hard dry. Well, as oil could take a few months. In this case, it could take about a month or two for it to dry, for it to be well dried so that you could varnish it. But usually, you could wait up to a year to varnish an oil painting, and even longer.
As we
So
can see, this is a painting from 1993, and the varnish is just, the colors are popping. It's quite remarkable.
yeah, now it's much more vibrant. I can tell it may need maybe another coat because
How do we know if it needs another coat? You did 2. How do we know if we need 3 or 4?
well, I did 4 passes. Um, the way you notice is that there's some colors that will absorb more varnish than others, and so it looks really patchy. What you want is a uniform sheen throughout the entire painting. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to completely saturate it where it looks wet. That's not the point. You need to put just enough for it to be uniform, but not so much that you're altering your painting. If you put too much varnish, it can be catastrophic. It could crack, but of course that would require an insane amount of layers of varnish. But you can go up to 5, 6 layers, no problem. You could go 8 layers, but if you go in like 20, 30, 40, 50 layers, then no, I wouldn't advise that. But with this varnish, it's so fine that you can get away with a lot of layers. There's some varnishes that are much thicker, really glossy. In that case, you might not want to add so much. But in this case, Camar is a great thing. And like I said, the cost is almost half of what you would pay for, some of the artist brands. Those cans could go for $25, $30 a can.
And
So
can we see, Steph, if the varnish is already dry?
um, it's not quite dry, but it's almost there.
So as you can see, the colors are really popping. It's truly a spectacular little piece, and we want to thank our clients for allowing us to varnish their painting and use it in today's video. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comments. Send us a quick email. If you need...
And above all, do not do this in your living room.
No.
You might want to do this in a really well ventilated place. We're doing it outside. I usually do it outside. We're in an art gallery. We're in a studio. I would prefer doing it outside, preferably when there's no wind. Um, you know, it, you don't want to breathe this stuff in, especially if you're a professional artist where you do a lot of them. You varnish your own stuff. Do it outside. It's the best thing. It's the best way to see the colors. And if there's anything that ever sticks to it, like a little fluff or a little insect, let the varnish dry, and then you could just wipe that off. it'll come off easily. If you try to take it off, you might end up with with a fingerprint. You might end up altering the varnish. Then you'd have to put another coat of varnish. So that's my take.
All right. So once again, please do remember to like and subscribe. Follow us for all of Stefano's great tips and sometimes rants. We are Le Balcon d'Art, and we look forward to helping you with all of your wonderful framing projects. See you soon.
Take care.